Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 528 of the Dead Robots Society. I'm Paulie Cooley. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Terry
Cooter.
Mixon.
Your co-host, Cooter.
Cooter Mixon?
That's right.
You know, we got to hook you up with a mullet. I want to see what you look like with a mullet. I want to see this.
There's probably an app that could take my picture and put a mullet on it.
There probably is. And if there isn't, why isn't there one? Somebody make this. I want to see the mullet maker. I want to see a mullet maker.
You're a programmer. You can make it happen.
No, I don't have time for that shit. I'm doing useful, important stuff.
Mullet making is a very important task that is underrated in our society today.
I'm thinking mullet maker is like a $1 billion trillion idea just waiting to happen.
I'm going to search it now because I'm sure it's real.
What's the guy from Twisted Sister? D. Snyder.
Mullet meme generator.
He always wears a he always has a mullet and always wears a shirt that says "Fear the Mullet." So I'm thinking Terry needs like a Gandalf beard with a mullet. I think we have got to make this happen. We have got to make this happen. So apart from the fact that you're missing a mullet, how the hell are you?
I'm doing all right. I haven't done as much writing as I want to do, but at least I know where the end of the story is. I think I have about 5 more chapters to get there.
Are you still chasing this goddamn, getting them to land on Terra?
Maybe.
Hey, you've been saying this shit for like a month now. I think they're going to finally get to Terra.
They're gonna get there. I already have what I'm gonna do lined out. Just been doing other things, and my wrist has been giving me some flack. So writing has been a challenge the last couple of days. But I'm going to get it done. I'm going to try to get it done this weekend. My target is to have this book finished by Sunday, so we'll see how that works out for me.
Yeah. Well, I stumbled into my book. I had to dump
like a drunken sailor Cooley?
Pretty much. I dumped about 5,000 words and started the hell over, and it's because I realized I couldn't do what I was trying to do with what I already had. So I went ahead and said, screw it. This is near future, and I can go as crazy as I want. So I went crazy. And I think it's going to make for a better story, but it means I have to keep track of more characters, which is always a pain in the ass. But apart from that, I'm excited because I get to go back to the ocean. I get to go back to weird sea creatures. I get to go back to do all that kind of stuff again. And actually having a lot of fun with it. There's just more science I learned. I was going through academic papers and all sorts of other shit about CO2 absorption rates in the ocean. And yeah, it's been
there's something wrong with you.
I'm sorry. I really liked looking at this because it's kind of prediction about trends for zooplankton and et cetera, which are all these building blocks of these biomes. And to sit there and imagine, okay, what happens if the pattern changes? What will these things do? Then it gets fun. Then it gets a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. It'll be. I can't wait. I can't wait. Oh, I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. So yeah, while you're still trying to get your people to Terra. Well, hello. I'm busy trying to figure out new and ingenious ways to kill my characters. So there we go.
I'm sure you will come up with a way to make it happen.
I'm sure I will. Apart from that, I'm still recording Evolution, which has been derailed over and over again. So I still have a long way to go on that, unfortunately, but a little bit at a time.
You'll make it.
Other than that, not much else. Not much else is going on. Just, usual living life, that kind of thing. I'm hopeful that we're going to get a post on DRS that says we have finally arrived at Terra.
There will be one. It will happen.
See, here's the thing. All the patrons out there, we have a live show this weekend. All you patrons out there, you need to make sure that you ask Terry about landing on Terra. I want to see those comments on Saturday. I want to see them.
Let's see. This is Wednesday, so if I think I have 5 chapters left, That means that I've got to write those 5 chapters in the next 4 days. Well, that's on
3
Saturday.
days.
We're doing it 3 days. That might not happen. I might not be quite done with the actual story, but they will be at Terra.
Who said you actually have to be finished with it? I want all the patrons to ask you when the hell you're landing on Terra.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Exactly.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
I can just see the readers, are we there yet? Are we there yet? When the hell are they actually going to reach Terra?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So here's where I insert the clumsy segue. If you had them land on Terra, how could you make things go sideways?
I have my plans.
You have your plans. Let's talk about how to make that little universe of yours sing.
I'm going to get use out of that character some more.
All right, then. You're in good shape.
So I've got all kinds of things that I'll probably be like Robert Jordan and drop dead before I get to.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling. Soul and Beyond keeps growing by the day in my head. It's ridiculous.
It's a lot of fun having that. We're back to talking there, but it's a lot of fun having a lot of things that you can do in a story.
Absolutely. It's one of the fun things about creating a universe is you get to decide what goes on there and discover what's going on there.
Maybe that would make a better topic of conversation. I think we may have wandered into an episode here.
There's a shock.
I think that's a fun thing to talk about. When you write a long enough series, you've got all the things that you plan to do, all the hooks you've left there. It's like your story grows exponentially. You've got what you had. Hey, don't you judge me. Don't you judge me.
I just want to make sure that there's not a word that I am not familiar with, because exponentially. Exponential.
How's it? It's an exponent. So how do you go?
Very exponential.
How do you pronounce it? If you're going to judge me, you got to pronounce it. Oh, here we are. He's judging me, but he can't even speak.
I can't even remember what word you were trying to say. Exponential. Maybe that's what you were trying to say. What you said was exponential. Exponential.
Exponential. However you want to pronounce it. However you want to pronounce it.
Oh my God. You heard it here first, folks.
I'm not going to be judged by Paul Cooley on the way I talk.
Exopotential.
I did not say exopotential.
Yes, you did.
I did not say nuclear. However it is that Bush said it. I can't even pronounce it in three syllables. I can't make it happen.
It's pronounced nuclear.
Now I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm going to tell you how to
the amount of things you could write in a story just keeps growing as you write more books in the series. And the stuff you have to set aside is almost as fun as the stuff you've included.
There's the problem I've got, or not problem, the way my brain works is I say, okay, this is the way it is. How do we get here? That's what I'm really interested in. So like Soul and Beyond is written, Derelict is written in the quote unquote present. But a lot of the other stories I want to write are about what happened to precipitate that situation. Because the outcome of the situation doesn't matter. How did we get here matters a lot to me. And I find that very interesting. And I think the more you set up the tapestry of one story, if they're related, it starts filling in all these blanks about what had to have happened before.
That's one of the things we were talking about during the clapping portion of this, where we cut it out from the patrons.
Yes.
Is some of the things that I'm going to be writing with Imperial Marines are going to have direct implications in the Empire of Bones saga.
Right.
The characters, the plot elements, things that they do. I can, if I decide to do something, if I decide to invent a technology, say, in Imperial Marines, obviously it's going to have to be something that's available 500 years later.
Yes, or they've improved upon it.
Or they've lost it and they have to figure out how to do it again.
Or they lose it and then encounter it and somebody has to go, where the hell did this come from? Which is always another wonderful thing.
Something that I think you're going to like about the Imperial Marines books is when I explore where the main character comes from, a entity of space called the Singularity. This character comes from a different social background. Everybody's clones. Nobody's born the normal way. She's designed from the ground up to be part of the ruling class. I get to explore how that works as a social unit, at least in how she's discriminated against in the Empire once she arrives.
Right. That's one of those touchy subjects, but it's a really interesting way to add tension. We were in the pre-show, we were discussing this, the edited pre-show, because we're both dealing with it from different vantage points. And it's always interesting because introducing a difference in protocol, etiquette, social norms, mores, and adherence to certain political ideals can lead to a lot of friction.
Well, because I'm the kind of guy that does this, I pick up little bits and pieces from other pieces of entertainment that make their way into what I'm writing. In this case, these clones are very much like replicants. They don't have like a timeout on them, but inside the Empire, they're considered property. They're not considered human beings.
Yeah. And see, that's where things get really interesting.
And I get to go ahead and try to just twist the story around to make that interesting. When I wrote a short story set in the Empire universe called Blood and Treasure, and it's part of the first omnibus. It's set with a character that is existing before the fall. And I set the ground rules of how these raids back and forth with the Singularity work. The Emperor has declared that since the military can't fight or this is a war, that these excursions, anyone that goes across there and fights, they're doing it as personal individuals. Maybe they have what's the equivalent of a letter of marque to go do it, but they're not doing it as the military.
They're volunteers.
And it's a requirement that they seize property and claim something and bring it back. I made that a mandate inside that short story. So what's going to happen in Imperial Marines is one of the Marines that finds this child is going to take her, save her from certain death, and claim her as treasure. And that's going to cause all kinds of problems.
Oh, Terry's growing up.
Well, it's going to be fun because I get to go ahead and, in case it's not obvious, that child is going to be the point of view characters in the entire Imperial Marine saga. So I get to start with Imperial Marine Recruit, where that character has to try to become a Marine like her mother, and all the bad things that are going to try to stop her from making it happen.
Yeah. That's kind of the way I want to write the Calimora series.
I don't want to write the story as from an aspect of slavery. It's not that kind of property. It's the Empire treating genetic clones as not people is part of their war against the Singularity. Mm-hmm. It's not their moral decision that these are not people. It's a legal fiction that is going to come back and slap them like a fish in a fish market.
Yeah, when you keep beware what you create.
They use this as a political tool in their fight against the aristocracy of the Singularity. And so when someone uses the letter of the law to bring a child back, and that's morally very ambiguous, even though they're saving this life, the law of the Empire says this isn't a person. But the people of the Empire, even the people that are enforcing that law, goes, it's not true. That is a person. Everyone knows that's a person. But it's going to be an interesting story to write.
The social issues, the social issue angle is always been important in science fiction. Oftentimes, I think it's been accidental, but it's always been an important part of that because it's people looking to the future. But you're also filtering it through your past experience and past knowledge. So using science fiction to talk about issues like that or exploring things like that is a blast. And sci-fi and fantasy, I think, are the only two main genres that really give you a chance to extrapolate in that manner. And we're talking about major extrapolations, because if you're talking about 500 years, you're talking about a lot of social change. I mean, just look at what's happened in the United States in the last 50 years, last 100 years. Women haven't had the right to vote all that long. The Civil Rights Act wasn't passed till 1965. So things have come along really fast, which is one of the reasons why they're a train wreck. And I think that civilizations in general, when they experience that much change, go through very, very chaotic movements. What comes out the other side? Anybody's guess.
One of the things I want to make clear is that I'm not treating this as an analogy to race.
Right.
I'm not trying to project race differences into the future. If anybody that reads the Empire series knows that I very rarely describe characters in much detail at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't envision them as being white, black, Asian for the most part. I try not to look at that. I don't really look at that. And when I say that there's going to be this bias, this help me out, come up with a word here. It's not because the clones are even clones. It's a very complex issue where I'm trying to go ahead and make an artificial thing that's like race, but it's not the same type of bigotry. That's what I was looking for, bigotry. It's a different kind of bigotry. And I'm not trying to equate racial bigotry with what is going to be going on in this story. But I'm going to be using bigotry. There's going to definitely be some there. But I'm not trying to make it a story that, I'm trying to tell a story about race. I'm not.
Doesn't matter. You are, whether you're trying to or not.
Yes, but I'm going to say up front that I'm not trying to tell that story. So if you're going to judge me for telling that story, it's a byproduct of what I want to tell, as opposed to me intentionally trying to do it.
Yeah.
Because somebody will look at me and say, you've never experienced bigotry. You can't talk about bigotry. No, and I don't want to get into that particular argument where people are judging me because they think I'm trying to tell a racial story, but because I'm not.
Well, people are going to see that, no matter how you work it in. You could just as easily be talking about white blue collar workers. It doesn't really matter. The social structure is the social structure, regardless of any of that bullshit. But some people are always going to see it analogous to a race discussion. Others are always going to see it as analogous to political class warfare. It is always, somebody is always going to be able to peer through it with their filter and get something out of it that the author never intended. Fuck that. Don't even worry about it.
I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not worried about telling the story. I'm just saying to the people that are listening here, I realize that it's going to be said, even if I do it,
even if it's not happen. The intention.
Yep.
Yeah. That's where things go. Yeah. I've got
welcome to the Twitter age.
Yeah. Welcome to any age. Welcome to the age of instant information. Though I think that is so much fun to trace down, though. I think it is good to look at, if you're interested in seeing how that social structure may play out, considering everything that has to go on in the future. What does humanity look like? What are they trying to do? What steps will they have to take to get there?
Luckily, with space opera, at least the way I write it, I don't have to think about big elements of the society until I need them.
I don't either. But I end up doing it anyway, because that's the way my brain works.
That's your perversion.
Yeah, it is my perversion. I want to see how everything got to where it is, which pisses me off because it means I have to write everything out of order.
What it means for me here in this is the fact that I get to include something that I can definitely have a number of characters in the story be bigoted against the main protagonist means I get to make some serious obstacles to success. And I get to make some people be assholes.
Having asshole characters is always good.
And then I get to beat them.
Or yeah, you get to beat them. Well, that's we see that play out in a lot of military movies and books anyway, is the young buck private or whatever that has to claw their way through boot camp and then claw their way through the unit. It's maybe put in the unit where everybody's veterans, and no matter how talented the private is, it's going to be hell.
And that's a lot of what I have in mind, is I'm going to emulate everything you just said. That's very much how I see this going. Yeah. It's going to be a struggle every single step of the way as this character goes on.
And drill sergeant, depending on what kind of military you're writing, is going to use every tool they have in their disposal to make you feel like the lowest piece of scum in the universe.
You've read Starship Troopers, have you not?
I've read Starship Troopers. I've read the Short Timers. I've read a whole bunch of those books.
That's how those drill sergeants are. They're going to be just complete and utter asses to your face. And in the background, they're going to be going, there may be some potential here.
Yeah. But you don't even need to show that.
No. And I'm not
more fun not to. Actually,
I probably will have a couple of side pieces in this. I'm going to write this, I suspect. I don't know if I'm going to write it in first person, but it's going to be mostly the viewpoint of the primary character. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to have little offshoots, little vignettes where the drill sergeant can watch something happening from a distance and be thinking about it. Things like that.
Do you think that actually adds to the atmosphere, texture of the story to have those moments?
I do think it does. And I haven't been doing it to this point because I've been focusing solely on my novels on having the main viewpoint character. But in a situation where the whole goal of these novels is the development of the character from where it started to something that I see going on, I can definitely envision having something like political figures, other people watching and talking about things that she's doing as this goes along. Whether I'll end up doing it or not, I think it would benefit if I did, but I don't know if I will.
That's very Ender's Game-ish.
Yes, it is.
Very Ender's Game-ish.
And I love that novel as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting to highlight how what the character thinks about events may not be what's going on.
Right. That's another part of the suspense thing, is that the character doesn't necessarily know.
If I was writing the first book in Imperial Marines is going to be Recruit. So it's going to deal a lot with getting into the Marines, dealing with basic training, and what goes on with that. So what the character is going to be striving for and how they see events as they are occurring is definitely going to be different than how her sergeant, how her lieutenant is going to see things, how the political figures that are watching from afar think about what's happening. Some will be for it, some will be against it. Some may be inserting things that are going to try to derail the main character. If I'm going to have somebody from afar try to derail the main character, I have to at least hint at it. I have to have something there that just doesn't blindside the reader with some contrived event happening. If somebody can sabotage a set of armor, I have to have somebody thinking about sabotaging that armor. I can't just have it happen. There has to be context. There has to be context.
Yes, but you can always have the character go out and get shot, armor crumple, or whatever else happens while they're on maneuvers. You can have a hose on a suit go wrong and then have somebody actually look at it and go, that was tampered with.
The way I think I would play something like that is I think I'm going to have somebody in the political structure that does not want this character to succeed, and him or her tell an aide, I think something needs to happen to derail this. And then there be a piece of sabotaged equipment that almost causes the character to die.
So speaking in terms of universe, is this a character that you plan or think is going to, this person, this puppet master behind the scenes, is this somebody who's going to play a large role in the universe?
Considering I just thought of them 5 seconds ago, I have no idea.
Okay, so
I literally, as we were talking, said, I could use that. Which is how I come up with story.
Yeah, instant brainstorming. This is Terry's vice.
I think that having a character like that as the foil from way behind the scenes would be something that's a multi-book thing, because certainly getting through becoming a Marine is not going to derail this political character or stop this political character from trying to get them out of the service. Maybe this political character used to be a Marine. Maybe he's offended that somebody that they call genies because they're genetically engineered are infiltrating his beloved corps.
Maybe there's context for that. Maybe there's not.
Maybe there's not. And I literally don't know until I actually start writing the character. The character's motivations are unclear to me.
That is another part of the fun.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling myself a story when I write a novel. And not knowing what comes in the future is part of the fun. When you start realizing I know exactly where the story is going now, I'm at the last bit of writing Raid on Terra, so I know most of everything that's going to happen. It's a little boring. Wrapping up a novel is boring to me because I've already figured out where it's going.
The work in progress I have going right now is that I've been working on the last few days is really interesting to me because it's taking place in something I didn't really think that I would have the balls to do, but I'm doing it anyway. I have no idea where it's going. I'm making up the shit and the rules and everything else as I go along. And
there has to be a rule about how you make up rules.
The rule is, does it serve the story? Does it serve the universe? Does it provide constraints?
Cool? Does it make you go, woohoo?
Just because it makes you go woohoo doesn't mean that necessarily it's going to be a good woohoo to anybody else.
Maybe.
So yeah, universes
but I
don't
write
matter
for other people.
Universes don't matter as much to readers necessarily as the stories that take place in them.
That's true, but I wasn't talking about them.
I know. Fuck those people. Anyway.
No, I'm not talking about creating big worldscape setting type stuff. If I'm talking about creating a villain, it's because it's a personal thing.
A villain, yes.
It's a personal foil. And it's part of the intimate side of that story. It's not an abstract. It's a hard, fast piece of thing that's taking place right there in the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We'll agree to disagree.
That's the way it usually works.
I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. I would just be more cautious in how I approached it, or especially in the first books, make it less ambiguous. It would be more along the lines of Harry Potter and Voldemort constantly trying to kill him, except him not knowing that it's Voldemort.
Yeah, something along those lines.
That would be much more interesting to me, is not knowing who's doing it or who's making it happen, and then have slowly the evidence come up of where it's pointing that somebody is doing this.
Maybe. If I'm going to have a viewpoint of the character, I may not name them. I may not have where they are revealed, but they are going to have a screen presence. I just don't do things that come along out of the blue without a screen presence causing them.
Okay. I like to give the clues of that. I like to give the clues of without ever having those people on screen. And then when we finally meet them or go up against them, then we know what's up. I love the characters finding that out. I like the reader finding that out as much as the character, depending on what it is. It all depends on the story, I guess. But
sometimes it's fun to have the reader know things the character doesn't.
Yes. I love being a suspense writer, and I love writing suspense because I can hopefully if I make them care about the character, then knowing that character is in danger without the character knowing they're in danger is a lot of fun.
So introducing a villain point of view, like I'm talking about, and it's not going to happen often. It's not going to be long, whatever I write. I've had a couple of books where the villain was a point of view character, and that's always fun to do.
Yes.
But I don't think I'm going to have it as big a part of this. Whatever takes place is primarily going to be 80% of that book is going to be from the protagonist's point of view. The other 20 is going to be people that support her, that are watching her, that are against her, all the rest of the mix of society, to illuminate something that's going on from a different angle than the character can see it. One of the things that I've not figured out exactly what's going to happen with this is the ruling class of the Singularity. They're not just clones. Their entire DNA sequence was built. They are completely artificially constructed human beings. They may look like us, but they don't have the hodgepodge of genetics that the rest of us have. They were designed.
You know what's driving me crazy right now? You're sitting there talking about elements that I'm already dealing with in my new work in progress.
I had this in mind. I had this in mind when I started writing Empire.
And we are exploring it from two completely different angles, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
This group of people has rejected implanting machines in their body. So I've got to come up with something that makes them as powerful as the Empire, where people do that. And I don't know quite yet what that's going to be.
That sounds like genetic engineering to me.
Well, it is, but when you consider that characters like Kelsey Bandar has a computer implanted in her head that can help her do things, she's got enhanced strength and bones and whatnot. How does somebody fight against that? This polity actually stood up to the Empire and fought them and held them off. So there has to be something to counterbalance that.
Nanite plagues, EMP, anything that could screw up electronics and take them down to their level.
Mm-hmm. But I haven't explored any of that.
Because you're a loser.
I'm a loser?
A loser. You're a loser. You and I are just like, today's a great day for pronunciation. I better not record any evolution today because, wow, I can't talk.
Chat now!
Yeah, I need to just point. Just be a mumble reader. Yeah.
But yeah, I've got to come up with something like that, and that's going to be fun to do.
The technology side of science fiction is when you start giving someone power, you have to give somebody else power to negate it. Otherwise, you've created gods.
It's like they talk about when you're creating magic. The real storytelling element of magic isn't what it can do, it's what it cannot.
Or how it's countered.
Its limitations are much more important than what it can do.
Right. So I love to give people all these weapons and have them be completely ineffective because they just don't matter. They may matter in fights with other of your own race or whatever you want to call it, but they don't work so well on whatever they're fighting. Maybe there's technology that they're not aware of. Maybe the damn things are just from another universe or something along those lines. And whatever the characters have at their disposal does not work or does not function the way they think it's going to function. And that leaves them to have to come up with ingenious ways to do things. That's a lot of fun.
I can't remember what the name of the movie was. It's been a long time. But it involved a midget character that was one of the people they encountered was the world's greatest swordsman. He was locked up in a cage, and in the entire movie, he only ever got a sword in his hand one time. He got to prove he was the world's greatest swordsman in one fight. But the rest of the movie was him being everything other than a swordsman.
Interesting. I don't know what movie that would be.
I don't know. I'm lousy with names, so I can't say.
You're only lousy with names?
Oh, I'm lousy with anything that I have to remember. The actor was the same one that played. It was Val Kilmer was the world's greatest swordsman.
Oh, Willow.
Willow, yeah.
Willow.
He only got to fight once. He only got a sword in his hand one time.
Yeah, the rest of the time he was falling down mountains and everything else. Yeah.
So his limitations were much more interesting in the movie than his strength.
Because the limitations made the character.
Exactly. You didn't get to see somebody just skating across the screen being Errol Flynn. You got to see him fail just about everything else he tried.
Right. Exactly. And that again, it is exactly the same thing with Dresden, and what makes that so much fun is because what he doesn't know is what's going to smack him upside the head, or you take away his tools. Sandman had I think the first arc was Sandman goes and has to collect his tools to do his job again. And that's what makes it so interesting is people have his tools and have been using them the wrong way or for their own gain. And now he has to go grab them all back. But he has to do it without his tools. About. Sandman. You don't know what Sandman is?
I know what the movie that came from. I know whether or not it's the same movie you're talking about.
No. Sandman was a graphic novel series done by Neil Gaiman and God, I can't remember the artist's name. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm completely unfamiliar with it.
It is about the god of sleep.
Oh, okay.
God of dreams, I guess I should say.
Every time I hear the word Sandman, I think Logan's Run.
Oh, of course.
It's colored my viewpoint of the word.
Apparently it has. Anyway, the idea that you have a badass who's without their tools to be badasses. You know, you take a Marine who's used to fighting in a mech or something like that. There's no mech. Or maybe their mech has been destroyed, but they're still trying to carry out their mission. It takes them at a disadvantage. It takes everything away. The same thing when a soldier who's very, good with firearms or anything else suddenly has to go hand to hand. It may be a completely different ballgame at that level. They may be easily outmatched. Maybe their body type or whatever else just holds them back from those kind of reflexes. They're kind of helpless, and they have to find a way to not be helpless.
You got to find a way to complete the mission, even when you don't have the tools to make it happen.
Right. You just don't turn around and walk away. So, and if you do, there has to be another complication right behind you that sends you right back to where you were.
I think I'm going to turn my back on this. The tidal wave smashes you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to ignore this big, huge hand that's about to crush me. Maybe it won't crush me.
Not looking.
That's not how that works. It's not how that works. I probably mentioned this before, but there's a creature that Douglas Adams keeps talking about in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, bug bladder beast of troll. There we go. That is so stupid that if you can't see it, or if you can't see it, it thinks it can't see you. So to get away from it, all you have to do is cover your eyes and walk away.
That's pretty funny.
My understanding is moose are exactly like that. If you go behind a tree, they'll forget where you are. That's what we were told in Alaska.
Good luck with that.
If you're walking around and the moose comes by, just hide behind a tree, and 9 times out of 10, they'll forget you're even there. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? They're really that dumb? Whatever. If you have enemies like that, that could also make a very fun game. What is it called? Red light, blue light? Yeah, that can get kind of crazy. See Silent Hill for more details. Anyway, we're talking about universes. You have tons of opportunities. Even if you're writing a military sci-fi in that universe, guess what? Military sci-fi is driven by politics. Military sci-fi is driven by economics.
Societal pressures.
Societal pressures, by the environment, by any of those things. So you could either include some of those details in there, or that can be in a whole nother series about what's driving this other thing to happen.
It could be, but I tend to take people and make them the icons of those type of forces. If I want to talk about economic pressure, I'll take somebody in the basic training company and make them the scion of a wealthy household that thinks they're going to become an officer and do all these great things, and make them a foil. Or
make them the main character of their own story, and people keep trying to get in the way of them reaching that.
For that either. But in the case here, I already know who the protagonist is going to be.
Yeah.
So it's always going to, if I'm going to have somebody that's going to be problematic, in this context, they're going to be the bad guy. They're going to be an obstacle that has to be overcome rather than the thing that's overcoming obstacles, at least in this particular context.
Right. But I think the point is that the universe is not one type of story.
If I was going to write a story about a son of a wealthy household in the military, it would be somebody that's not too fond of their own family.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's much more interesting to have them having gone to the military as a way to stick a finger in their father's eye.
And the other corollary to that is it is very interesting if they get thrown in the military and don't want that, and all the preconceptions they have about their easy life and their parents and what their parents do and everything else, they finally find out the truth that it's not the way they think it is.
That sounds like a Paul Cooley story.
Damn right it is. Damn right it is.
Mine is much more direct.
But they're both good stories. They're both good ways to get that across. They're both great ways to explore it. There is no wrong way to do it.
There isn't. There's no wrong way to do it. When you're writing a story with whoever you're writing that story, you are seeing the world through the prism of their personal growing up, their personal beliefs, their personal perceptions. And you can go ahead and put those rose-tinted glasses on, or you can go ahead and have the guy that sees nothing but bad happening. And it could be the same set of events.
Oh, absolutely. That's also fun to play with, where the characters have different recollections of what actually happened or interpretations of what actually happened. Maybe because it's official that they have to make it different than it actually happened, or maybe it's just because they're that much in denial or that clueless or that afraid of the truth, which I guess goes to denial. Anyway, I'll be the Department of Redundancies today.
Netflix had last year, they had a kind of a D&D-ish movie that they came out that had Will Smith as the lead actor.
Yeah. The one that takes place in modern time, but have fae and orcs.
Has orcs and stuff like that.
And elves.
I've forgotten the name of it, but
Bright.
Yeah. At the end of that movie, and this isn't much of a spoiler, there are official federal types that are involved there. And they're trying to get a grasp on what's going on the entire time the movie is going on, but the events just keep getting out of happening before they could get there. And at the end of the movie, the federal types are there with Will Smith and his partner. And the partner had gotten in trouble earlier in the thing because he didn't tell them something. He didn't tell his superiors something, and he wasn't honest about it. And that just about got him fired, just about got him killed. And so at the end of this movie, the feds ask a question, and he starts just telling them everything that's going on. And the feds like looking at his partner, and his partner goes, what my partner really meant to say was something completely different.
Yes, nothing happened. What my partner is trying to say is we subdued the suspect and nothing else happened.
And then the Fed goes, and that's the official story that you're going to stick with, right?
Yes.
And they said, yes. And that's how that worked.
Yeah, and that's another motivation that you can bring in that you see this in all these stories anyway. You'll have one character that did something and they're either so ashamed of it or so afraid of the repercussions that they will blame it on somebody else or find another way to attribute the cause of it. And then they will claim they were just caught up in it, and that's why they made the bad decisions. That kind of thing is wonderful for the character to say, especially if they know they're full of shit.
Oh, I think it's even better if they believe it's true. People lie to themselves like nobody's business.
Constantly. So yeah, that's another way of dealing with it. Again, there's no wrong way to do it. Just be true to that. If you make that decision though, where they're in denial, they have to be in denial about everything that deals with that in such a way that it starts to cause more friction with the other characters and maybe leads them to some kind of breakdown when they finally have to admit that what's going on.
I can't remember the name of this particular story, and it's way too fuzzy in my head, but it's one of those stories where somebody's hunting for a killer and they start suspecting that killer might be them.
No, that one.
Those particular kinds of stories.
Yeah, it's psychological suspense, and I like it. There's a couple of tales I haven't written that I really want to that has to deal with that exact kind of thing, only a little bit different, a little bit of a twist on it. So yeah, having characters. I think, God, what is it called? Mr. X by Peter Straub. Kind of had that where you had the main character kind of turn into or realize that they were what they were, when they were trying to basically attribute all these other things to a doppelganger. That can get interesting. Stephen King's Secret Window, Secret Garden is another one that you should really check out if you like the psychological suspense aspect. It's a great story. Great story.
There's
it's about a writer.
One of the lit RPG novel series that I've been reading. It deals with somebody that his real life is shit, and he gets involved in one of these games, and it slowly dawns on him based on things that are going on that he's not the hero of the story.
Is he the sidekick or is he the villain?
He's the villain.
Oh.
It's not a sudden thing. It's going along. You go, I don't think I'm the good guy here.
Why are all the clerics trying to kill me and screaming out, demon out?
Of course, now the author that wrote this, I thought it was going to be much more nuanced than it was. The people that represent the light in this particular thing are just assholes. They are the bad guys. They really are. And the guy that's playing the villain, he really is the good guy. But it would be fun to write it, to have a story go where, you're involved in this fantasy world and you realize maybe I am being pulled towards the dark. Maybe I am a bad guy.
Maybe I'm not making the best decisions possible.
Exactly.
The Superman graphic novel Red Sun kind of goes along with that too. It's an alternative universe Superman where he lands in the USSR and not the United States. It's a very interesting take on things, especially what they did with Batman. What they did with Batman was fucking brilliant. So basically they picked up the DC universe and then filtered it through that and put all the characters in Russia and USSR and how they would change, or, an idea of what they would become like. So that was very interesting because you get to see the character that is Superman change from have their idealism affected from the very, very base, and then have them years later understand the mistakes that they made or the things they did that ended up being bad for, humanity and everything else, and then have to live with it. That's part of the fun of writing, is to give the character that kind of guilt, but you have to give them some reason to change and to alter. And so no matter how powerful they are, everybody's got skeletons in their closet. If they're any sense of, if they have any sense of self-awareness, there's going to be skeletons in the closet and what they've done. There's going to be memories. There's going to be regrets. There's going to be all of that. The only question I have as a reader is this going to change the story in such a way that it makes sense for including it?
I think of Star Trek's Mirror universe.
Oh, the binary guys, or
no, where they had evil Spock.
Oh, evil Spock.
He wasn't really that evil, not in comparison. He wasn't nearly the savage that Kirk was in that universe.
No, he was.
He was a wily kind of bad guy.
He was practical.
Yes.
He had reasoning for betrayal. He had everything to justify everything that he wanted to do, which would ultimately give him power.
That's a fun kind of story to imagine, writing the story of Spock in that universe. That would be fun.
Yeah, how they came to be that way, how the Vulcans would change. Yeah, alternative universe. And it's easy
to see your beloved world, whatever that may be, twisted.
Yeah. I mean, there are stories where Lex Luthor is the hero.
The Superman novelization, he wasn't the hero, but he was the protagonist.
I like that. I like that a lot. You talking about the Superman Batman movie or whatever it was?
No, I'm talking about the original Christopher Reeve Superman novelization.
Oh, that one, yes. That one, yes.
Bore no resemblance to the movie whatsoever. None at all. It was all written from the point of view of Lex Luthor. He was a criminal. He was a bad guy. But sometimes you've got to set aside the fact that you're a bad guy because the fate of humanity may rest on your shoulders.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before where the really nasty monarch of Earth or whatever suddenly has to deal with the fact that an alien race is attacking, and instead of spending all his time beating up on his people, now he has to figure out a way to get them motivated, to get them, give them all the ideas to fight.
Well, the Lex Luthor in this novel is better at this sort of thing than somebody like that. He doesn't go around just beating up society. He wants to beat Superman in this novel.
Right, yeah.
That's his goal in life. He may lie, he may steal, but he does not kill. That is not the Lex Luthor in this book, and they make that very clear. He is not going to kill anyone. That's not what he wants. He wants to win. And to do that, he uses his intellect. He's always come up short. It pisses him off, but he's going to keep trying. One of these days, I'm going to have to find a copy of it and send it to you, because it is just such a refreshing story to be told with a villain as the protagonist.
Oh, boy. Well, I've been in prison 15 times. I keep escaping. I don't know why they bother putting me back here when they know I'm just going to escape again.
The very opening scene of this particular novel, he's in his prison cell and he's making notes to himself, and he's thinking how he could take the ink and the pen, the adhesive from the notepad, and build an explosive out of it that could get him out there, but he's not going to do it because the next time they catch him, they won't give him his pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the same kind of character that in the past broke out of prison but forgot something and had to break back in to get it. And that's part of this character's storyline. It's what makes that Lex Luthor who he is.
Just imagine a Gotham City where Batman gets bored because he's completely subjugated all the criminals in the city. And so every fortnight or so, he goes and breaks into Arkham Asylum and breaks somebody out without them knowing who broke them out.
You know what? It's not quite the same thing, but that sort of sounds like Mystery Men, where the hero needs a villain to fight. So
yeah,
he does what he has to do to get the villain out of prison.
Yeah, we have to have this guy on the street. Otherwise, we'd have nothing to do. I think Mur Lafferty's Playing for Keeps has that same kind of feel to it. Another good book you should read.
I have.
You have. I'm just talking to the audience. Nobody's talking to you. Nah. Those are interesting ways to write stories, is to flip it. It's always so much fun to flip the character expectations or the reader expectations like that.
If with something iconic like Superman, it's so much more interesting to see Superman through the lens of someone other than himself, and somebody that doesn't think that highly of it. He thinks that Superman is a blithering idiot.
and then he tries to go out and prove it.
No, he's basically, I hate to say, kidnapped and forced into helping him, but circumstances force him into helping Superman.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
It's more like, if I don't help my enemy hold up this boulder, it's going to crush us both like bugs.
Gotcha. Then it becomes a buddy cop movie, a forced buddy cop movie, though.
It kind of was. It kind of was.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying.
It's nothing like having Superman stand there and make these heroic pronouncements, and Lex Luthor go, God, he's so stupid.
I like that kind of story. I like that kind of story a lot. That's awesome. I love it.
I don't have a copy at the moment. I think I'm going to have to go to Amazon and buy one and reread it and then pass it on to you for the next lunch, because it's fun.
Oh God. I'm afraid. I'm very
You should be afraid.
I should be, in fact.
I think we need to drag this to a close. We've been talking for a while.
Yeah, we have been talking for a while, and we even had a topic for today, but Terry derailed it before we even got to it.
I brainstormed my way into a new one.
I have to change the title of the damn episode. All right.
I'm not even sure who was hosting this. I'll claim I was.
You know, considering what you've been doing the last couple of weeks with closing out shows, I'll go ahead and take this. If you have a comment on what we said today, you can send an email to show@debrobotssociety.com. You can tweet me at Paul_E_Cooley. You can visit us on Facebook at the listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook group, where all the insanity happens. We have to thank our wonderful host, Podhoster, who makes all 500 bazillion episodes of the DRS podcast available for your ear holes. And if you want to help support the podcast and tip me for all the crazy stuff I have to do to get this show on the air every week, and also buy Terry some beard oil, you can find us at patreon.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get exclusive things like live shows and stuff like that. And now we have to read the list of our $10 patrons. And this week we have Sue, insert something witty here, Paul Bayman. I don't have anything witty. JD Barker, Jack Frosty Erickson, Kelson, this year my master plan unfolds. Hopefully. Isabel Cushy, Rick, going back to where it all started for me, Shaw, Lisa Slack, Nathan, the artist formerly known as Sandy Manpants Cosby, Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Drew Impeccable Goaltending Bernardi. Somebody's just a little too proud of their Predators. Chris Winder, Andre Conde Marias, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Handley.
Thanks very much, folks.
Yes, thank you as always. And with that, I think we are going to get out of here. So be safe, have a great week, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.